we'll be talking about how to incorporate some applique pieces that you might have already made into a bigger project. So today I'm working on the very top row and the bottom row are the same, and they're basically the inserts with the sashing in the middle. I've got 4 of these squares out of this batik here. And what I wanted to do is just take a minute to kind of audition each piece and see what I like for the corners. This might be nice. So I've definitely decided on one. I really like this piece here, and it is at the bottom. And I'm definitely gonna fussy cut that. Okay, I like that. So I've decided on my 4 corner pieces. This is a sashing that will go in between. So my next piece is 15.5 inches. So I like to take a couple different pieces to the sewing machine. It just helps with the getting up and ironing and up and down. So I'm working on each end. So I need another piece, 15.5 inches, and I'll attach that here. So I've got my top row done. This is my corner piece. I've just followed along with my pattern here. My sashing, I've got another piece, 15.5 inches. Sashing, my middle piece, 19.5, and so forth. So you just go along and cut the lengths that you need, and this will match up to your other pieces. Sashing is going to go below it since this is my first row. So I'm going to now pin my sashing to this row here. So now that I've reached the end, I can go ahead and cut this off. Give myself a little room. But this is just to make the rows. So that'll be for my next row. So I've cut my butterflies to 15.5 inch square, each one of them like I need. But I did want to point out a trick that is very helpful. So when I'm cutting and I'm wanting to only cut like a 1/4 inch or even 1/8 of an inch, it's really helpful to use another ruler that has the marking. So this has 1/8 and a 1/4 inch marking. So if I was wanting to do 1/4, I'd run this up and down my fabric, and then I would know that it was a clean cut all the way. But what is really helpful is even on 1/8 of an inch. So when you're putting the sashing in between pieces, when you're putting the sashing to your first piece, you can always leave a little bit of extra on the top and the bottom because you're going to cut that off. But now I am pinning on the piece that has been cut to size. So it has to be exact or as close as possible to my sashing. So I'm going to pin it both sides, and then we're going to take it to the machine. So one thing I do when I'm adding that cut piece that I know that has to be exact when it opens up is I start on the one side like I'm normally going to do, and I sew probably 3 or 4 inches. Moving the pins as we go. Making it as straight as possible, making sure your fabric is lined up here. Okay, so then what I do is I just go to the other side, flip it over. I also sometimes pin it on this edge so that I know that when I open this up, it's going to be square. So many times fabric will move and travel, and then by the time you get your seam done, you open it up and it's not squared. It's not where it should be. So let me make sure it's where, there we go. And then I can go ahead and sew the length of this piece. Now if you're working with darker fabrics, I'm a big fan of just letting the seam fall where it may. I don't necessarily open my seams, just where they like to fall is where I press them. Now we can see that the edges are just where I need them to be, squared up. That's great. But I just love how fabric moves. It's like you tell it where you want it to go, where you're gonna cut it. And just kind of line it up. But when the pieces get so long, they get heavy, so you have to really watch that. That's why if you put your hand straight down, your little pinky on the fabric, it does help. So while I'm on this side, I try to do 2 sides at a time, so I know I have to cut this. Let's get this really good spot. Cut those off. Pop this baby on there. Pick a line. There we go. Pick the seam. Looks okay. Good. All right. I'm good at this seam. I'm working on this up a bit. Alrighty, that's a go. And here's another tip for beginners. When you're lifting your needle, always rotate your wheel towards you, never back. Okay, so now we're going to look back at our pattern that we've made and say, okay, so I know my center piece is here. It's cut, it's ready to go. I've got some sashing in between. What I'm going to do is do rows. I'm going to put them together in rows. So my sashing is only on the sides of each piece, and then we can sew the rows together. So the first thing I'm going to do is pin and sew my sashing on each side. Just take it above the piece, pin it all the way down, make sure that I like each side. Sometimes batiks have a side that you like better, so I think I definitely like that side better. I'm going to put it down right there and we'll sew that up.